May 12th, 2024, beautiful day, very early in the morning. Past sunrise though. Lately I seem to be getting up around sunrise or maybe a little bit before. Things like the birds singing or starting to hear some traffic, stuff like that seems to be my signal to get up. It'll be anywhere from 4:35 to 6:30, rare instances, maybe eight or more, 8 or 9. When I'm sleepy, I sleep. When I'm hungry, I eat, except for my autophagy diet. So we're exploring the native cloud OS more and more, and I'm calling it that because that's I want that. I want that because once we have that, we can build on it. And as I've mentioned in other recordings, one of the strengths of that is the platforms that we use for implementation, even for existing products, can change. It can be mutable, which allows us to always jump on the next thing, the coming thing. Get entrepreneurial wise and innovative entrepreneurial wise. I think it's a good idea. You want to keep an eye on the next thing, but then you also want to have keep an eye on the next thing. By the time you get to three, you could look at it, but it's not time to put too much resources into it, especially when the stuff that's the coming thing and the next coming thing are so insatiable appetite for resources. It's not that we couldn't do it, and not that it wouldn't pay out. It's that it's not where the sweet spots are yet. Yet. The reason to be aware of it is because when it does come down that it's the thing, we're already able to identify the sweet spots. So, I mean, so much of this technology, any company could just specialize or focus on that alone, and it'll generate a lot of wealth. Whether we do it or not, it's going to happen. It's just a matter of whether we want to exploit it in a good way. So, uh, the native cloud OS is our platform at a very abstracted level so that um if we're working with one platform and finding out, well, cybersecurity, this is a very weak link in our system. um if we can find one that's stronger or more hardened or doesn't have that problem, we plug that in, we replace it with that. I guess a word that comes to mind would be modular. We want it to have a modular ability. We want to think in terms of modularity. And I keep intuitively thinking in terms of molecular keying. Do you know how molecules connect up? It's called molecular keying. This molecule has some kind of chemical uh, combo, and this guy here has some. You're into the key holder gatekeeper paradigm again. So this molecule has a gateway or a portal, and this molecule has a phalange. Go ask your mother. And when they match with, it's again male female type paradigm. When the male inserts into the female, now you've got a connection, and maybe you've created something new. I mean, that's what molecules do, right? Um, Yeah, I don't know. I've had a bit of chemistry too. Part of my science, part of my degree. So can we do something like that? Is that the pardon the pun, the key to this aspect or this thing or this component? Yeah, so in the operating system, I'm envisioning anything that a typical operating system would have, which is usually provided by running programs like EXEs, or scripted, going through script engines and doing scripting like Python or JavaScript or whatever, and then having a command shell that's exposed, or a command shell service, I should say. That's why I'm talking about this. Rather than the old way of making a program that provides that service and maybe a command shell, but what a command shell typically is doing is it's parsing your input and using it to run certain programs and stuff. Like when DOS was still the thing, batch files could get very elaborate, and Unix, native Unix, just originally and everything does a heck of a lot with command shells. But with Unix, there's like three popular ones and at least six or seven that you could use if you wanted, that provide that service. And even Microsoft, from being a batch file thing and with DOS, more recently they've made it very elaborate to be used. They kind of went jack back asswards. They started with the GUI and then went back to saying, there's a reason why an enterprise server should be terse. And most of the time, the system administrators don't care about having a Windows available. um, Serious systems administrators are going to have a series of like batch files and stuff that basically have built tools for their tool bag. And I've done some very cool stuff with that. I'm reminded when I was working at the refinery, at the Tesoro refinery, they got hit by a virus, and it was on the Exchange server, and I was the expert for Exchange server, and I was very pleased to find out how much my learning allowed me to troubleshoot it. And once again, struck with very few people would be able to do this or even know that it can be done. But we had throughout the refinery, I don't know how many, more than like 40, probably hundreds of computers, and workstations were getting affected all over the place. This is back in the days where you usually had a day to 3 days lag before the like Norton's and or Semantics, I should say, and McAfee, which antivirus was his original claim to fame. I know his entrepreneurial case history, or some of it at least, and yeah, and Central Point Software down in Portland area, they were one of the first antivirus products. And interesting little bit of trivia. I guess the CEO for the startup that I came up here to work for, who's like a millionaire and stuff and lived out by Skyline and all that stuff. Um, I guess that was his original fortune. Was he was one of the founders of Central Point Software, which I don't think is around anymore because I think it probably got bought out. But he made his fortune. He was one of the startup guys, and so here he was starting up again. So that gave him some credibility. But sometimes fools can end up in the right place at the right time. And our society gives them credit as if they're smart or 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 something. I'll tell you, I suspect most of the current crop of billionaires, it's not that they're so smart, it's that they're such assholes. Yeah, that kind of summarizes it. So you can call them whatever or think that they're whatever you want to think they are, but regardless, they're axiomatically assholes, not pleasant people, not necessarily good people. In fact, no, they're not good people. Because in my world, if they were good people, they wouldn't be billionaires. Their company would be, all their workers and stuff would be enjoying in the wealth. Now, the phenomenon of something like Microsoft or whatever, the early adopters, the early workers, the early employees. You know, like I said, I worked with a guy that I guess was like employee number three for Nintendo of America back when Donkey Kong was their first thing that hit the market. Um, yeah, I loved working at Nintendo. It wasn't because I didn't want to work there that I left. It was because I had to go on and learn about robotics. So anyhow, beating my own drum. I've got a drum around here, you know.